The problems facing New Zealand's primary sector have been mounting at a rapid pace. So I think it's time for open hearts and open minds. Now, my haere mai and welcome to the last edition of Sarah's Country for 2020. Now, this was a year that we launched into existence from a place of what was simply a dream. I'm not going to lie, I was terrified. But Dean Williamson, I spoke about quite a lot on this show from Farmers Weekly, he was determined to jump in behind because, as he explained to me, you're a determined little shit and you're going to make this happen regardless. And I could not have done it without his support and the wider Global HQ team, as well as my team here at Perry and Media. Yes, I am a determined little shit, and I'm proud of that because we have got to nearly 700 episodes in under 12 months. And I tell you what, it's just about that consistency, about showing up and doing the job. And even though it scares you so much, and it's such an amazing place to feel of gratitude to close out the year. And so I thought on this last edition, how about we close on the theme of leadership in our food and fibre sector in Aotearoa, New Zealand? I have many thoughts and opinions on the leadership in our sector, but as I age year on year, it moves and it develops, and of course, as it does with leaders from a place of their experience from that year and building into the future. We are not born leaders, and every one of us has the ability to be a leader, whatever place we have from a place of influence. And I wanted to share this to open/close for the year. My favourite quote that I discovered, and when I'm scared, because I do get scared, is everything, to jump in and fear of failing is such a thing that we all live with every single day. And it comes from the defining speech of Theodore Roosevelt. And I thought I'd close the year on this, as I think it's so fitting to the challenges and opportunities of the primary sector. Theodore said, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives vigilantly, who errs, who comes short again and again. Because there is no effort without error and shortcomings, but who actually strives to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms and great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who is the best known for the triumph of high achievements, and who, at the worst, if it fails, at least fails daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat." I don't know about you, but I think that is super fitting. And a way to open up as a sermon from my pulpit on the last edition of Sarah's Country. We are such the tenacity of this industry is something that keeps drawing me personally to want to get out of bed every day and continue to do this. I don't know, I'd love to hear your thoughts around that. Our year ahead requires our leaders from grassroots to the top to dig deep into the uncomfortable and to strive to do the deeds marred by dust, sweat and blood, to achieve the ultimate change we are devoted even in an environment of cold and timid souls. So, in our last show for Sarah's Country, we have a special 2020 wrap with 3 panel discussions with some of our rural industry leaders as we review the year and what can we expect from 2021. I'd also love to know your highlights of 2020. I mean, was it simply having farmers and growers finally recognise as food heroes that they really are? Or was it a kind spring that it was around the country? Or could it be, simply some of those personal things like the birth of a new child, grandchild, a wedding, or a happy moment that happened in your business? I think that we should actually share and not feel guilt when we celebrate. And you know me, I am the eternal optimist. You know, here at Sarah's Country, we certainly are not living in fairyland and want to talk about the matters that matter most. But I feel in such challenging times when mental health is such an issue, I want to continuously walk alongside you with my wider team to be able to embrace gratitude. So I want us to share in the comments below, what are you grateful for and celebrating about the year that's been? Because I tell you what, focusing on the opposite is not healthy. So I'd love you to join us. I also just absolutely love when we do a shout out to who's watching and from where as well, because it's so nice to know that you're watching along live with us. But the thing is, I know that so many of you are listening on demand as well. I'm looking forward to hearing from our panelists tonight on that year that was, and let's dig deeper into what type of leadership we need to take us forward with open minds and open hearts into 2021. So, of course, there is a fantastic podcast that I have to give a shout out to because we kind of helped make it. Kate Scott, she's been a regular on the show, and she is the Managing Director of Landbro, and Knowledge Hub is her show that she's just launched in the last couple of weeks. Please go and subscribe to it on podcast, because I tell you what, I am so jealous of the lineup on her podcast. And one of the incredible episodes is with our guests after 7:30 in long form for a good 40 minutes. We'll have them for about 5 to 10. Lindy Nelson, founder of Agri-Women's Development Trust, in conjunction with Chris Parsons, the CEO of Rural Leaders. You could not get two more wonderful people to discuss on the topic of leadership. To close the show, Rob Hewett has been a regular to Sarah's Country. He is not only the chairman of Silver Fern Farms, but also of Farmlands Cooperative. He will be joined by Mel Scrymgeour, the director of category for Farmlands. Mel has been heavily involved in dealing with businesses head on in terms of resilience through such trying times, and what it was like from behind the shop gate. And Rob, of course, understands leadership at a very top level. So what is needed to take us forward? But firstly, two wonderful men who are also at the top of their game. Sam McIvor, CEO at Beef and Lamb New Zealand, and Andrew Hoggard, our president for Federated Farmers, will be up with us very shortly here on Sarah's Country to unpack the year and get inspired about the next.
This is Sarah's Country.
Growing a better world takes courage. It takes foresight and vision. It's about dreaming big, then being brave enough to follow that dream through. To create a world where food is plentiful, soils are healthy, and rivers run crystal clear. A world where we grow more with less, where livestock is tended to with care. Energy is friend, not foe, and waste is a valuable resource. This is the world you're already shaping through imagination, innovation, and determination. So as small steps become huge leaps, you move boldly forward. And Rabobank is there beside you to help grow a better world together.
Kia ora and welcome to Sarah's Country. If you've just joined us live, it is our very special wrap of 2020. As we're going to follow a theme of leadership, what has been a huge year for stepping up and doing the right thing, as well as what is needed going into the next year. There's two gentlemen that kick us off in Sarah's Country that both are at a position of heavy influence when it comes to a huge amount of strategy around our primary sector, both behind and beyond the farm gate. Welcome to Sarah's Country, CEO for Beef and Lamb New Zealand, Sam McIvor, and President for Federated Farmers, Andrew Hoggard. Hey, let's just kick it off. Are you both looking forward to a holiday? Are you going to get one? Sam?
Yes, and yes. I am looking forward to a holiday. It's been a pretty full-on year, and I traditionally take some time off at the time of the year, as does the team. Don't seem to want to hear from me, and if you live in a place like Wellington, basically government shuts down, so I'm going to have a good break, thank you.
Andrew, the cows still need milked, though. Are you still going to, recharge somehow?
I stopped doing all the Fed stuff, so yeah, nothing happens in Wellington through January, but the farm still needs running, hay still needs to be made, so I'll still be doing it, but to be honest, if I've just got to do farm work, and then each night go out with the 22 and daughter and blast some rabbits, do a bit of building around the house, to me, that's sort of relaxation. So it might not seem that to other people, but for me, it's how it's probably more relaxing than hopping in a car and being stuck in traffic somewhere, to be honest.
I was actually just thinking, my old man taking me out to shoot rabbits would be the best Christmas present that I could get, actually. I certainly think that it's a wonderful reflection when, of course, going out and doing farm work is a holiday, Andrew. Yeah. Hey, now both of you have had a massive year. It's not just, of course, COVID. There has been so many developments in terms of dealing with the regulatory change, but also in terms of taking the industry forward. Sam, let's start by looking back at COVID and what you're most proud of from the beef and lamb team.
Yeah, I think if I talk wider than the beef and lamb team, I thought the industry put on an amazing performance, really. So if you think about early in COVID, we had lamb processing capacity down by 50%, cattle processing capacity down by 30-odd%. We're in the middle of a drought. But then you will have seen just the announcement this week that we achieved 130% lambing across the industry. So for me, as I reflect, a remarkable performance by our farmers, by our processing industry as we look at early season schedules at the moment. They're looking healthy, and that is a reflection of the fact that we are really good at what we do in New Zealand, and the way that we farm, where it's a free range, it's a grass-fed, antibiotic-free, hormone-free, that's resonating with customers around the world. So for me, an outstanding performance, which sets us track for the year coming as well.
Yeah. And Andrew, Federated Farmers walking alongside, as well as a lot of the organisations, to guide the government in terms of essential workers under lockdown. What was it like actually getting through to MPI in terms of the consequences and flow-on effects of that?
To be fair, it wasn't that difficult connecting with MPI and getting the message through to MPI. We had a meeting with them today, and I, said to Ray and his team, they really were the ministry for primary industries this year, emphasis on the for part. They really did take a lot of times we'll give stick to MPI over they haven't done this, they haven't done that. But this year, I do think, there might have been the odd stuff up that people didn't like, but by and large, they really did do a sterling job for agriculture this year. And, everyone came together and worked as a team, I thought, across industries, particularly during that COVID situation. To be honest, there was a lot of phone calls, a lot of everyone sort of working from home, and teleconference calls here and there at all hours, sorting out what does this mean? Are we able to do this? Are we able to do that? Getting processes and then getting the information out to farmers. We had an update at our National Council meeting a couple of weeks back, and our marketing person just showed us the volume of traffic and interactions we had with farmers throughout the year, and it was just this massive spike in the first week of, I think it was a couple of 100,000 interactions we had as an organisation in those couple of weeks of lockdown. So it was just a massive amount of phone calls, emails, people clicking on the member advisories. And, that's, if you look back at the year, that's probably, the thing we've got to be most proud of, how well we pulled together, how well farmers despite all the challenges, keep performing. There's economic stats out just today saying, things aren't looking as bad as everyone was expecting. And, a good part of that was due to agricultural production and the excellent prices we're returning from the land. So, I think farmers can be proud of the job they've done, and, industry, we can all pat ourselves on the back for having stood up and helped our farmers get through this time.
Sam, the work that Beef and Lamb are doing with Taste Pure Nature, and from a consumer fronting perspective, the primary sector, were put on a pedestal and celebrated as food heroes during that time. Our COVID-free status, is it really definitely resonating with the global market? And how can we continue to leverage on the work we've done?
Yeah, I just think it's part of the story, Sarah. If we look internationally at times, it's hard to raise the awareness, or people don't know about New Zealand and about the characteristics of our products and our farming. And so when we're put on the world stage because of COVID, or, historically maybe Lord of the Rings, all of those things help to build a really compelling story about New Zealand. So yes, we're out there pushing the attributes of New Zealand, of Taste Pure Nature, in terms of those things I talked about before: grass-fed, free-range, low-impact farming. It just helps to build that image and raise the awareness. And then, our job at Taste Pure Nature is to direct people to those brands that our meat companies have overseas as the product that can meet people's needs.
Andrew, lobbying from the sidelines, I know, speaking to Chris Lewis a few times on Sarah's Country, with our borders being closed and that heavy COVID strategy, it has had its flow-on effects to our labour shortage here in New Zealand. How are you feeling about how it's been handled and what needs to be done more?
I think, there's aspects that, you look back and think we could have done better on that. Things have taken a while to get through. I think we had you'd have to say, a caution first approach to the borders. And, in hindsight, potentially that was a smart move. We probably could have done things a little bit better. But it's going to prove a challenge going forward, I think, in just a couple of the real sort of technical areas, and potentially around, if we can't get the border open quick enough in the immediate term of some of the labour shortages. I think in the medium term, we need to focus more on talking to the schools, the kids, get into their heads that careers in agriculture can be extremely worthwhile. If we're looking at where our farms are going to be in, say, 10 years' time, there's going to involve a lot more technology, the skill sets are going to be different, and we're going to need people that are, they're a step above. They're not the traditional, you got 3% in school set maths, you'll make a great farmer. We need the ones that actually pass the school set maths, or whatever the hell it's called now. I think it's getting into the young kids' minds that, agriculture is, if you like doing stuff with your hands and your mind, agriculture can be a great place for you. And that's sort of where, as an industry, MPI, we need to sort of work together on promoting that career pathway. And I think that's going to be our challenge going forward. Where we do have those gaps, then we need to make sure we've got good, smart immigration systems to allow people to be able to get in there and do these jobs, because even if you can make the career as exciting as possible, there's a lot of people that just still want to be in town, close to the shops, be able to go to the nightclubs, the pubs, and catch a taxi home, whereas it's a bit hard to catch a taxi from Palmerston north to Kimbolton sort of thing. They're extremely expensive anyway.
I know you would have done it once at least, Andrew. Come on, you're lying.
No, I think I just slept in my car, to be honest. But, that is that is some of the challenge of being sort of remote. And sometimes it isn't about the money or the things. It's just being away from everything. And that, some people, if they're used to being in town and around lots of people, solitude's challenging for them. Whereas for others that are used to solitude, we go stir crazy if we're near town.
Absolutely. Isolation is bliss. I actually absolutely loved it. But that is what That's what the biggest thing I learned from living in Auckland for 18 months is they only know what they know. And it's hard to teach them. Sam, I was really disheartened when I was over on the Ag Fest on the West Coast talking to a farmer who said it's so hard to compete when there is books going into schools telling people that farmers are to blame for climate change. Do you take those types of things with importance in terms of the messaging that comes out of the industry bodies that when you move forward in terms of how you support this regulation and how it is perceived?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Sarah. And listen, we've done quite a bit of research around urban New Zealanders and their understanding of farming. And I guess one thing I do need to state first up is that urban New Zealanders do respect farmers and the role that farmers play in the New Zealand economy and in rural communities and urban communities as well. So there's tremendous respect there. But you're right, there are some, I guess, what I would describe as falsities or urban myths, you might almost say. And climate change is one, right? That yes, we're 50% of climate carbon emissions or climate emissions as a country, but actually what people don't understand, and if we think about the sheep and beef industry in particular, is that we've reduced our emissions by 30% since 1990. And the latest sequestration report that we produced indicates that sheep and beef farmers are almost carbon neutral. So I think there's a real onus on us as spokespeople for the industry, and whether it's Federated Farmers, Beef and Land New Zealand, Dairy NZ, et cetera, to make sure that we're telling that story. And I've got to admit, we've got to do it better. But initiatives like Open Farm New Zealand, where we invite urban communities onto our farms, we know it's a very, very powerful tool. We know that things like Meet the Need has really resonated with urban communities. And so I think for us, it is telling the story, but it's also taking action as well and providing the opportunities for urban New Zealanders to look at the whites of our eyes and know that we have great people sitting in our industry who are doing great things and who love New Zealand and are very proud of what they do.
Andrew, we are talking about a theme of leadership here, and it is an interesting perspective when you have a lot of industry organisations all around one topic. As soon as certain rules and policies are announced, I am flooded with Dairy NZ and Beef and Lamb's press releases saying we endorse, we're happy to support, etc., changes. One of them today is strongly endorsing the recommendations of a review into the intensive winter grazing rules. How are Feds going to look into the working with government going into the next year, because it's not so much about keeping the door open pre-election anymore?
I think the key thing for us is, in the sort of style, I guess, or how I want to do things is, be open and honest, be straight up with the politicians, and tell them our concerns, why there are concerns, but it's about not doing it in a table thumping manner or, going to the headlines first of all. It's about talking to those people, saying, here is the challenges we see, here are the problems we see, here is what we'd like to see fixed, here are the concerns our farmers will have with it, and, relaying to our farmers, here are the challenges we see with these regulations. I think, we all have to be adults and be able to have, straightforward conversations around the challenges we see and the outcomes. And, I'd hope that the politicians would respect the fact that if I'm going to effectively, play the ball, not the man or the woman, that they would do the same. We'll debate the issues on their merits, not on personalities, and sort of leave the personal attacks out of it and just focus on the issues. So that's the sort of attitude I'm going to take to it, and sort of that's how we're rolling in terms of, the fact that, we've got all these people involved. Sorry, I'd add to that, generally the focus always comes on when we disagree with something. So, everyone will focus on the time we disagree. And generally the times we put press releases out saying, well, we agree with this policy, it's like, well, that's no good news. It's not bleeding, so we can't lead with that. And so that sort of often gets missed. But I do think, it's just being straight up, and that's how we're sort of going to approach these things and talk on the facts, the science, and the concerns our farmers have. And, part of our role is that we report back the farmers' concerns. So, we will be talking to the politicians about, here are the concerns our members are telling us, this is what they're concerned about, and, we believe they've got good right to be concerned here, or this is where they're upset about, and providing solutions. Because I see, a lot of times it's not, to me, a lot of these rules and regulations, the thing that annoys me the most isn't that I have to do the right thing. Often I'm already doing the right thing. It's proving to someone I've done the right thing. And usually that proof requires multiple reports and tick boxing and all this annoying stuff where, actually, if you could develop some good systems and actually look at, how am I already recording this information? How could you already get all that, certification effectively, or a surety from me that the right things are happening? It'll make my life real simple, and I wouldn't have a problem with it. And so I think that sometimes it's not the outcome we're against; it's sort of the methods that might be getting to that outcome.
Sam, how do you find it in your role as the CEO of Beef and Lamb New Zealand, where you are essentially representing a very, very wide group of farmers, not just the top farmers to pull them up, and therefore taking an approach which is about, pulling your socks up, but without losing levy?
Yeah, listen, at times it's a difficult situation, Sarah. I believe definitely as an organisation we have a role in leading the industry into the future, and that's exactly what farmers have asked of us. But at the same time, if you're leaders, you've got some followers behind you somewhere, right? And so for us, it's always, we've got to gauge where I'm in relation to where we're leading. And so we do a lot of work to try and, what I describe as grassroots ourselves or ground truth ourselves with our farmers. We're all the time trying to test whether we're going in the right direction. And I guess for us too, just alluding to Andrew and the role of Feds, Beef in New Zealand or Dairy NZ. You commented on the Southland report, and the Southland report I thought was a really good example of Feds, Dairy NZ, Beef and Lamb New Zealand and farmers working together to give advice to NGOs and to regional council. And I think the message I get very clearly from farmers is that they do want us working together. They don't want us duplicating effort. And so that's something that, whether it's Andrew or Michael or myself, that we've got to be really accountable to make sure that we're complementing each other in the work that we do. But, farmers have asked us to lead, and so for us it's looking over the horizon and seeing what things are coming towards us as an industry and making sure that we prepare farmers for it, and farmers can see a path through it, which is about a prosperous future, a profitable future for their business and vibrant rural communities, which are very, very dear to them.
Andrew, in a wrap, what is one thing that you are most certain is an optimistic future going into next year for farmers and growers in New Zealand?
I think the thing I'm most optimistic about is obviously commodity prices are looking reasonably strong, very strong. So that's something that can't be sneezed at. That's the thing that gives me a lot of optimism. So we've got strong markets. And so if we can, Feds, Dairy NZ, Beef and Lamb, do our jobs and make all the bureaucratic stuff nice and simple for farmers, they can get on with farming and have a good year.
Yeah,
well, the weather will obviously play a part, but we can't control that, so we'll just roll with those punches.
that sounds awesome. Nice and simple for farmers. Sam, what are you looking forward to and most optimistic about 2021?
I'm most optimistic about our farmers. And one of the things, we have talked about a lot of change, right? Regulatory change and external market change happening. And I've had the privilege to travel all around the world and look at farmers in action. And the thing that I say about New Zealand farmers repeatedly is that New Zealand farmers are the best anywhere in the world at adapting to change. And so I know we have some challenging things ahead, but I've absolutely full confidence in our farmers that they will adapt to change and they will continue to be successful. They will continue to be well regarded by New Zealanders, and their product will continue to be sought after internationally because they're farming in a way that resonates with the world right now.
Thank you so much to our first panel on the last edition of Sarah's Country for 2020, CEO for Beef and Lamb New Zealand, Sam McIvor, and President for Federated Farmers, Andrew Hoggard. I wish you both a very wonderful Merry Christmas. And of course, up next, Lindy Nelson, founder of Agri-Women's Development Trust, and Chris Parsons, CEO for Rural Leaders, will continue this theme around leadership into 2021.
This is Sarah's Country.
Growing a better world takes courage. It takes foresight and vision. It's about dreaming big, then being brave enough to follow that dream through. To create a world where food is plentiful, soils are healthy, and rivers run crystal clear. A world where we grow more with less, where livestock is tended to with care. Energy is friend, not foe, and waste is a valuable resource. This is the world you're already shaping through imagination, innovation, and determination. So as small steps become huge leaps, you move boldly forward. And Rabobank is there beside you to help grow a better world together.
Oh, welcome to Sarah's Country in our last edition, a wrap of 2020, a bit of a Christmas special. And it was just wondering how I was going to end this year. And I wanted to end it on a clear message around how we are all leaders. We are not born leaders. We are leaders through our experience, from grassroots right to the top. We've heard there from Beef and Lamb CEO Sam McIvor and Andrew Hoggard from Federated Farmers President. And the thing is that, when we look at ourselves into, new year, new you, what are they called? Resolutions. You'd start to go, what am I going to do about improving myself into the future? And I'm very excited. Next guest doesn't know this. I've signed up for the Next Level Agri-Women's Development Trust governance program for 2021. It's something I've been wanting to do for so long. Press release come through. Bugger it, do it. Come on. And I would love to challenge you. What are you doing to extend yourself into the new year? Because as I said, we are all individually have a power of influence over our future. And it is absolute pleasure and privilege to welcome to the last edition of Serious Country two extremely visionary leaders in our primary sector. She's founder of Agri-Women's Development Trust. I don't like saying former because I feel like she's still 100% connected to the sector. Agri-Women's Development Trust founder Lindy Nelson, who is a member of the New Zealand Order of Merit, and the CEO of Rural Leaders New Zealand, Chris Parsons, who has an incredible history in leadership through our military services. Thank you so much for coming on board. Everyone's going to their blimmin' Christmas parties, and it's just so wonderful that you could both join us tonight to celebrate, because oh goodness, what a way to end the year of all years. Lindy, I'll start with you. What was the pinnacle where you saw leadership absolutely stand up in a year like 2020?
That we got on with it. Farmers got on with it. We absolutely made a connection, and I think it's been spoken about before tonight around food insecurity, and genuinely tried to find ways to connect to our fellow New Zealanders and think about how we were going to basically take New Zealand forward. And so in all of those ways that farmers worked harder, totally understanding now that the ability for New Zealand to thrive as a country is now pretty much on the primary sector. So, it's all the ways that we connected with urban New Zealanders. And that wasn't just Meet the Need and the likes of Tony Egan. I'm really privileged to talk to farmers all around the country, and in a way they were directly connecting into their communities. And so absolutely, that's amazing. The stuff the industry is doing, I think we can be very, very proud of our industry bodies and the people who are in our industry bodies and are leading us through really unprecedented times and putting that product out there on a global stage.
Chris, 4,500 graduates with Agri-Women's Development Trust and thousands that are a part of the alumni of Kellogg's and Nuffield under the New Zealand Rural Leadership Trust. It is really grassroots when it comes to driving change, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think excellence begins in the detail. That's not to say we should think small, but we start there, we get the detail right, and then we move forward. And I think that's what our farmers, growers, crafters have been doing through the whole of the COVID experience, in putting others first, looking after their stock, getting out every day, finding new ways to do things. And so, yeah, absolutely, our grassroots leaders have done us proud, I believe.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. And the thing is that, Lindy, I opened there with that quote from Theodore Roosevelt, and it's about, digging deep, in the dust, getting back up again over and over again. With rural New Zealand's having its confidence knocked for so many times in a row, and they feel publicly attacked, what is your advice in being able to get back up and keep going?
I think it really comes down to mindset and who you surround yourself with. I mean, if you seek people who are like-minded and are visionary and are motivating, then you're going to feel that. If you seek people who are going to really keep you down in the dust and are doom and gloom, then that's where you're going to be. So mindset is huge. And, there are so many great initiatives from Farm Strong all through that really can help people focus and change mindset. We did a great program online this year with Beef and Lamb around grow your mindset, grow your influence. And it's as simple as that. If we can adapt and change our mindset, if we can understand ourselves in the situation, surround ourselves with people who are going to motivate us, then we can be successful.
Chris, we talk a lot about how do we enact change, but it comes from an empowered individual to start with. What is the most rewarding thing that you see in the development of personal ownership over your own influence once that tap's turned and they're away?
Yeah, I think empowerment's a really interesting dimension between another leader letting go and the new leader stepping up. And that interplay happens in so many different ways. And so for us, seeing as Lindy would through AWDT, as we see the leaders coming through our programs and seeing them gain confidence and just being, and then their bosses allow them to innovate and create inside of on their farms or in their agribusinesses. That's always the most exciting piece, just to see that new confidence.
Lindy, are we actually fostering an environment for this to actually be able to be possible, what Chris has just said?
Yes and no. So it comes down to self-discipline and self-awareness. And I never forget when I literally had just launched the trust, stepped off the stage in Parliament, and Fran Wild came up to me and said, "Leave while they're still asking you to stay. And one day you're the rooster and the next you're the feather duster." And of all the things that I heard that night, strangely enough, that kind of went in. And so, growing leadership is one thing, growing your own leadership, but then getting out of the way and letting people take things forward. And so I see some great examples of people doing that. I see some examples where people are hanging on and they're not, shifting over to allow new innovation and new thinking coming through. And so there's a whole pipeline. I mean, we have to mentor, we have to promote, we have to recognise, we have to, in some ways, train leaders, but then we have to give them the opportunity to actually lead.
Absolutely. I mean, I am not a massive rugby follower, but there is examples of that. If you don't nurture grassroots rugby, you won't see it at the top with the All Blacks. Chris, in all of your years prior to coming to Rural Leaders, what was some of those examples, leading on from what Lindy just said there, of nurturing leadership through?
Yes, some fantastic examples through the military. And I always think of Sir Jerry Mataparai, Tim Keating, and other great leaders like that, Peter Kelly, who really put their ego in their hip pocket, trust their people, and let them get at it. And so telling them why something needs to happen and what they would like them to achieve, but not telling them how to do it, is always this interesting sort of dimension. But allowing people then to figure out how to do it, having an open door so they can come back and you can sort of innovate and iterate the plan, that's fantastic. But just giving people that space to make their mistakes and have their back when they do is a really important leadership skill. And the best leaders I've observed have been masters at that.
Lindy, the development of environmental regulations is something where I know a lot of farmers are just saying, you know what, just tell me what you want from me and how I can achieve this. They're over the why, and having tangible ways of being able to feel like you're making a difference. It must be extremely hard when a lot of it's done behind the farm gate and people can't see it.
Yeah, so I think I understand your question. Are you saying people are actually doing the right thing now? Being
able to feel like you are moving forward and you are doing the right thing when there isn't those benchmarks in place to be able to benchmark when there's so much unknown.
Yeah, and look, that would come right up to, there is a political game at play, and I think the faster we can actually put a line in the sand and say, here's where we all need to get to, bearing in mind that for each environment that the farmer works in, it is different, and so we can't have blanket rules right across. But that doesn't stop us from still doing the right thing, and we know what that is. And we see examples of that every single day. And to me, I don't want to wait till the government tells me what to do. I'm going to do it in any case because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, Chris, that is the one thing, and I'd love to know the leaders that you're nurturing through the Kellogg's and Nuffield is how to keep that form of integrity, that humble leadership of doing the right thing when no one's watching.
Yeah, so as Lindy says, that comes down to principles and ethics, and we try to explore that whole topic and then bring that out. I think in the end, your authentic leadership self, if you like, is based on your character, and that doesn't necessarily mean strictly a moral sense. It can mean your characteristics as well, but that's what your authenticity comes from. And in terms of doing the right thing, a nice little way to test yourself on that is the things that you're prepared to walk past is the standard that you accept. And so, making our rivers clean, looking after our animals, looking after our staff, all of those things, pretty core to us, I think, as primary sector leaders.
I was on an amazing group chat. I've got to celebrate this yesterday. Last night, Tangaroa Walker, Duncan from NZ Farming, Laura Douglas from Real Country, and Kane Briscoe and myself. And we were all come together sharing in some of those challenges when you're in those positions of just go, 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 and taking on board so much from a public-facing perspective. So I'd really love to end on a way of being able to give your advice on being able to shut off and look after number one to be able to help others. Lindy, how do you go about that, and what's your suggestions?
Well, I'm laughing because I have the same strategy, and it has worked and it hasn't worked for 10 years. So we've got a place in the Marlborough Sounds, and for the last 10 years I've been wanting to be able to say, can I go from a few weeks to 6 weeks? And this year I think I've nailed it. It's off the grid. So I walk every day. I accompany my husband fishing. I'm not a fisher person myself. Read a lot of books and really have time in my own head in nature. And there is a lot of research to say that nature is the most grounding element that we can possibly get. So I think find the thing that lets you go into your own thoughts, be imaginative, be visionary, think about the future, and put your day-to-day hassles aside. And what really worries me around New Zealand is a lot of farmers are not taking a break off the farm, and so it's very hard to be able to achieve that without a physical break.
Chris, your thoughts?
Yes, I took a good game on this, but I'm pretty hopeless, to be honest. But the technique that I use is to go running, and it kind of does that same restorative thing that Lindy's talking about. For me, it's getting out there, getting toxins out of my system, freeing my brain to think, and then that just sort of gets the blood flowing, and then I can come back renewed. So for the most part, that's my simple tactic.
Thank you so much. It's a privilege to have both of you on Sarah's Country in the last edition. Founder of Agri-Women's Development Trust, Lindy Nelson, and Chris Parsons, the CEO of Rural Leaders. Can I give a shout out to the Knowledge Hub podcast, which is out now, and very soon the episode will drop, where Kate Scott, the host of that, goes into full detail with Lindy and Chris. And I can swear to God, it is one of the best episodes on podcasts that you can ever watch. So go and subscribe to Knowledge Hub so that you make sure that you're in the know as soon as that drops. Last on the show, we have Rob Hewett, Chairman of Farmlands, and Mel Scrymgeour, Director of Category for Farmlands. I'm really looking forward to closing on the commercial reality of 2021 from their perspectives within an organisation such as Farmlands that are on a mission to be together stronger. All that up next here on Sarah's Country.
This is Sarah's Country.
Every morning, Kiwi farmers wake up to produce high-quality food. Yet, every night, some Kiwi families are going to sleep hungry. Meet the Need is a charity founded by farmers, and it's here to change all that. We're about New Zealand farmers feeding New Zealand families by donating a small part of what we grow when we can. You can help us make sure no one in New Zealand goes to sleep hungry again. Visit meettheneed.org and follow us on social.
the recipe for perfect beef and lamb. Take one small fresh country. Make sure it's nice and remote. Now, keep it at the ideal temperature all year round. Next, mix in the farmers. They go perfectly with the nature of this unique place. Add regular sprinkles of rain to really bring out the lush meadow grass. Then let your animals happily graze on this grass all day, every day. And there you have it, New Zealand, the perfect recipe for beef and lamb. Taste pure nature.
This is Sarah.
The comments, there we are. Thank you for joining us live in the comments below. Leadership comes from Kaituki, the keeper of the rhythm in the waka. And we're talking about leadership here tonight on Sarah's Country to round out 2021 and what has been a year of demonstrating leadership in every single facet of our communities. And Renee Lloyd says, active relaxing. I think she's saying ha 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 to the words of Andrew Hoggard when asked if he was going to have a break. And I mean, it just sums up farmers and growers around the country, really, that, you know, as Andrew said, just simply farm work was the relaxation. But of course, many of us have a year ahead and a summer ahead of uncertainties. And the commercial realities of that sometimes can get washed over with words of wisdom from our leadership. So therefore, I've got to close the show, Rob Hewett, Chair of Farmlands Cooperative, and Mel Scrymgeour, the Director of Category from Farmlands, both here with us on Sarah's Country. Kia ora. Thank you so much for coming on the show, gentlemen. I know you'll be hanging out for a cold beer in your hot offices right at the moment. I really appreciate it.
I'm looking at one right now, Sarah. I better wait.
I don't put it past you. Thank you so much, Rob and Mel, for being on the show. And now, Mel, I'm just going to start with you. The privilege of spending some time with you at the Farmland Supplier Awards. And I got a real insight into what we don't see a lot of, which is the absolute resilience in our commercial rural businesses and how they were able to navigate COVID. Can you share us about your experiences dealing with them individually and how they came through that?
Yeah, great question. Well, COVID was the challenge that no one wanted, obviously. And one thing I think some of our farmers perhaps forget, arguably, is that if our suppliers don't supply us, then we've got nothing. We're heavily reliant on them. We call them supplier partners because they are partners in business. They're part of our supply chain. In terms of leadership, there's a little aviation quote I like to recite. There's 3 words they use. First of all, aviate, keep things flying. It's not good when your plane doesn't fly. So in a crisis, keep the business working. And that was a real collaborative effort with the supplier community. We all had to aviate together. We all had to make everything keep moving. And that meant working with MPI and getting status for the suppliers to be open and manufacture and distribute. And then secondly, navigate, work out where you're going. And sometimes those time frames are quite short. They might be a day or a week. They're not sort of 3-year plans. So keep the plane flying and make sure you know where you're going. And then finally communicate. And that's sort of the order. It might seem counterintuitive not to communicate first, but you've got to know what you're communicating and where you're going. And those sort of 3 words were a driving force for us. We kept informed with our supplier community, and we made sure that we were all aviating together as one happy family, and look, that worked well for us.
Rob, sort of on that aviation theme, I mean, there was certain companies such as Air New Zealand and Kathmandu that really struggled through this because they were so heavily indebted. In the primary sector, we're quick to say, why are you not passing on the profits? And the structure around some of our primary sector organisations, how is it navigating the books in terms of adversity and experiences you've had this year?
Yeah, it's been an interesting one, as Mel said, the one we didn't want. Look, I'm going to answer that from an ag perspective, and I will freely admit that we have had the privilege of being essential services. A colleague of mine is a governor on a number of businesses that weren't essential services, and I can tell you the conversation he would have would be quite different to mine. Look, I think we have come through this very nicely, really, when you consider what the alternatives could have been. Now, that's not to say it's been easy. That's not to say that we have produced results anywhere near the budget that we thought we were going to. But we are still here. We are still relevant. And in many cases, we haven't taken subsidies or we've just taken the minimum that we needed to get through. And I think, that the ag thing, New Zealand, I think, my view around COVID and subsequently is that consumers, as they were locked down around the globe, and you just need to look around the world today. Germany is about to wake up any time now, and they will find themselves staring at the walls for until the 10th of January. So this is going on around us. While people are in that space, they spend a bit of time thinking about things, and they worked out that their food supply chain wasn't as secure as they thought it was. In fact, they'd given it very little attention because it was in the supermarket when they turned up to go and buy the product. That degree of confidence, they took a bit of a hit, and they revert to safety. And New Zealand's been seen around the globe increasingly, certainly among the consumer sector we wish to trade with, as being not only a safe supplier of food, but a safe supplier of safe food. And this is standing us in good stead. So, you look around the globe, my favourite comment at the moment is strategy is one thing, but right now strategy is sort of parked over here. It's doing the do and getting it done and being quite tactical with a mind to how do you keep those supply chains open and get the product through. And that's been consuming a lot of time. But broadly speaking, New Zealand agriculture has done that pretty bloody well. And we're seeing the benefit of that. New Zealand is emerging. And, it's not just been ag. I think our Prime Minister, whether you've got a red dress on or a blue dress on, it doesn't really worry me. I think from a global perspective, she has marketed our country particularly well. And that's another reason why consumers globally look to New Zealand as a safe supplier of high quality produce. They are receptive to us because we've got something they don't.
Mel, you deal with a range of different supplier partners, whether international bases or here in New Zealand. And there's a lot of misunderstanding about the level of New Zealand agriculture carrying on as business as usual from an international global partners perspective. Has that started to settle down and seeing supply chains open up for our rural supplies and the confidence building here that New Zealand is, as I said, business as usual?
Not really. I wish I could report a little bit differently there, but that's not quite how it's appearing. What's actually happening is there's not enough containers, as you may have heard, around the world. The containers, or enough containers, are in the wrong places. And unfortunately for New Zealand, we get left off. We have ships that I think it's called a blank sailing. They don't actually turn up here at all. So in the short term, our supply chain is safe. We have enough products in country that'll see us through. A 2-week delay, there was a Radio New Zealand report that 2-week delays are going to cause an issue. They're not really. There's enough product in country. The medium term, I guess, if you want to sort of talk about the middle of next year, if those supply chains aren't sped up and resolved, we will have some, or possibly have some supply chain challenges. So, the global context doesn't see New Zealand as being hugely important in the global realm. And it's really for us getting stuff out of China and getting it in a timely fashion. So rather than saying there is a crisis, because there's not one, But having gone from secure supply chain that we were confident with all the time, I'd now rate us as possibly having some issues.
I find some optimism in that. I can find it in anything. Rob, I want to end on some comments that Chris Parsons and Lindy Nelson, just when we were talking about leadership there, is about nurturing and bringing through future leaders. How important is it to have transformational thinking with the challenges we have ahead of us in 2021?
How much time have I got?
As long as you like.
Look, I think yes, but it's not the only thing. You know, I think something that the next generation of farmers in New Zealand need to understand and have their hand up for is that if they don't want to go into leadership positions in the future, if they aren't prepared to step up, they will get what they get. I am a big fan of cooperatives. I chair 2 of them, and they are integral to my business. And I am firmly of the view that as a farmer, you need to own a slice of your supply chain, or you will be dictated to. It's the only way that a group of many small suppliers can redress the balance of power. So, New Zealand agriculture and the New Zealand economy is really reliant on cooperatives, ag co-ops. As farmers, we own this. We need to govern them as to the best of our ability. We need people to put their hands up. Now, I admit there's never a good time to want to become a governor of a business. I can remember my own situation when I was 38, being approached to stand on the board of Silverfern Farms, or PPCS as it was at that stage. And I said to the guy who approached me, I said, look, Robbie, I thought about that when I was sort of 50, and, you know, the kids are away and the farm is all done and dusted, and I'll be looking for a fresh challenge. And Robbie said, well, the time might be now. And I think the time is now. And this is an evergreen thing because we need leadership, continued leadership. And part of that leadership is transformational change, as you talk about, but that's not the only part. My view is the co-ops are doing a better job of developing governance talent amongst their shareholder base, but we've started from a hell of a long way behind. And businesses at the same time are getting more complicated and complex. I think farmers, there are very, very good businessmen, many of them, and women, running farms and running agricultural products and services as well. They need to put their hand up because New Zealand won't be as good a place as it is now if we don't. And we need diversity, we need young people coming through, and we need them to be self-starters. And I think what people will find if they do put their hand up, there will be all sorts of help coming to them to get them into a position where they're confident and capable enough to do what they need to do.
Rob, I want to echo what you just said there because I have a lot of 35-year-old sheep and beef farming friends who are complaining about the price of strong wool, which you have an influence over. And I say, well, my uncle at the same age got off his ass and did something about it when it came to New Zealand merino. And so therefore, I don't actually believe that crying in the wallows around the edges is something that should be aspirational. And I really echo what you just said there, absolutely 100%. And as I said, I signed up to an Agri-Women's Development Trust governance course today to actually show that leadership because, I want that for all of my friends at my similar age as you were at 38. So thank you very much for saying that. Mel, there's been some transformation, let's be honest, at Farmlands over the last year or 5 coming. But the thing is that these businesses are not going to be what they were of the past. There is a new future in the way that our rural supply businesses operate to be there to support farmers and growers into the future. What are some of the learnings that you have taken from the transformation of Farmlands?
Well, quite a few learnings, really. One is that it's painful. It's necessarily painful. You do have to reinvent yourself, and Farmlands is coming through that. I guess when you start these processes, you go through a bit of a J curve. So you know where you're at, and you actually tend to go backwards slightly before you can leap forward. And as you leap forward, you're on the upward angle of J, and that's where we find ourselves now. We're starting to do that. I think with the technology, sort of almost echoing the leadership commentary that you and Robert just had, a lot of the answers are in the industry already. We know what to do. excuse me, and as a group, I think you're going to see technology become the bedrock on which we start to build new businesses and new ways of thinking. The connectivity between a producer, a farmer, a grower, and their suppliers, which is facilitated by the likes of Farmlands and our competitors, and then the cooperatives that Rob represents in his other role in terms of Silver Fern or P&G. I think the integration across the industry is going to grow really rapidly, and we're always going to have New Zealand Inc. Working together, and the technology is the enabler for that. So I think the lesson is that if I think about suppliers and retailers, we used to, back in the dim dark days, we used to be combative. It was how much we could screw each other. And then there's been collaboration. And I think we're moving into a new stage, which I would term ecosystems, which is actually working off the strengths we all have. So rather than beating each other up and trying to win, trying to work more as one. And I think you're going to see more and more of that happen.
What an awesome way to end. But I have to both ask you, of course, which way you're going to hang up your boots and how you actually take some time to turn off the cell phone and recharge that battery. Rob? Relaxing?
Before I go there, I'd just like to echo what Mel said. And since you said that I am all godlike in the strong wool sector, which I'm not, by the way, I don't have any influence over price, thank you. But I certainly would like to put something in place that lifts it. Look, a good example of collaboration that I can report on right now is that the Strong Wool Action Group is working very closely with ROMS and the Campaign for Wool to deliver an outcome that we all want. So, this ecosystem thing is alive and well and needs to be. We're too small a country with too good a product set to bugger around fighting each other. The competition's out there, not here. But anyway, to answer your question, I'm off to the beach soon. I get Zoom up there, so I haven't quite finished. I will be growing a scungy beard. My kids tell me that I don't look particularly attractive. Well, even less so. But I choose to actively grow a patchy beard, which will be greyer each year, and just spending a bit of time with family, kicking back. So that'll be me and a few mates, but doing not a lot. Chuck the cell phone in the bottom drawer and do a bit of swimming.
Now?
Well, I'm off to the Sounds with friends. I'm on a weight loss mission, but the problem is we eat and drink a lot, so I'll have to restart. I think I'm like one of those people that stopped smoking, reporting my weight losses, but you're never quite sure what the base is that I'm coming from. I've typically lost 2 or 3 kilos, but I keep adding on to lose the 2 or 3, so bit of a challenge. So off to the Sounds with the family and friends, and like Rob, I'll have the cell phone pretty much tucked away for a couple of weeks.
There is something so unique about the Sounds that's resonating across this entire program. I'll be heading that direction as well. It's just that the smell of the bush, just the reconnecting with nature. I mean, we farming and growing are doing that every day, but actually removing yourself from your workplace is just the change that you do need. And sometimes it's not. Rob, I just do want your thoughts to young people similar age who are working their asses off, haven't had a holiday in years, and you're been through that, and actually say, is it really worth it? And what is the importance of actually taking that time?
Yeah, I've always subscribed to a change is as good as a holiday, and maybe that's environment, and maybe it's just doing something different. So yeah, look, if you can afford to get away, do. But getting away might be just going to town for a day and going to a movie, or even forgetting to put the key into the quad bike and go for a walk around your farm instead of going for a bloody ride, because you're usually busting your ass from one job to the next. Just take some time out and look up the creek, or go for the walk and admire the view. It's doing things differently. It is refreshing. Look, if you can get away, I think that's great. There's too many people get it down in the spiral, and we're bloody busy here. Christmas comes at completely the wrong time, but isn't the weather good? So try and take the most of it. And in the meantime, Sarah, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to both of you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Mel Scrymgeour, the Director of Category at Farmlands, and the Chair of Farmlands, Rob Hewett, joining us there on our last edition of Sarah's Country. And just the thought of that, I will be heading on a plane on Friday, and the last place I'm putting my head down is no cell phone coverage in a hut on the river. I can't wait for 2 days. What a great way to refresh. And I know, as Rob said, it's not the easiest thing for everybody to be able to do, but even if it is literally just walking around your farm or heading down to the river with the kids for a swim, that is enough to just refresh the brain. And that is what we need to ensure that we continue to echo here on Sarah's Country. To close the show, I am bringing in the man that was here from the very beginning. We're going to celebrate with a lovely present that we have been given from our lovely friends in Scotland. Joel Rock is up to close the show with us here very shortly on Sarah's Country.
This is Sarah's Country.
One of the first things you learn when you live out here is where to shop for the things you need to live out here. Like electric fencing.
Or horse feed.
Or bee suits.
Children's.
Chook food.
Do you want a couple of these?
Or something stylish to wear. Not everyone's got stuff like this.
But at Farmlands we do, and then some.
So if you need anything to help your farm,
grow,
milk, dredge,
rear, come on in.
Because we're out here too.
Well, as I said, it is, of course, our last edition of Sarah's Country. And, of course, the wonderful Joel Rock. I would not have been able to do this without the amazing team. It started with just me and you, Joel.
Uh-huh. I know.
How far it's come.
Yeah, we have our own studio now. That's pretty handy.
Do you remember that first show?
Yeah, I do. I remember swearing whenever I realised you were live for the first time.
And we were in a little meeting room and we were in level 4 lockdown.
Yeah.
It was blimmin' crazy. And I remember the moment you said, you know what, we can't do this all. We have got to get somebody to help us. How about our friends in the UK?
Yeah.
Megan, and now Denise has joined the team, her mother as well, who I've got to say thank you so, so much. They have organised from Scotland to send us over a bottle of, what is this? You know your whiskies, but it's a Scotch whiskey.
It's a lovely Scotch, so it is. It's a 12-year-old Glengarry.
And
Glengarry.
Thank you so, so much to our amazing team. Just starting off with, of course, Joel. Joel, you have been absolutely, as I said last night, my rock, the rock to the show. And then joining the team was Megan Milne in the UK and her mother Denise, who sent us a small gift. Now, Joel, it says here, cheers and something in Gaelic. Is that?
Scrymgeour.
Scrymgeour. So do you say that? Shall we have a wee whiskey?
Sure.
We don't. It says here, we recommend trying it neat first, then adding a few drops of water. But don't drown it.
No,
and you're a whiskey connoisseur.
Yeah.
What do you normally like drinking?
Oh, I mean, I like all kinds of stuff, but I mean, Lefroy is pretty good. It's a good go-to. Lagavulin lovely.
One piece of ice?
Yeah, I mean, a wee bit of ice, a wee bit of water. It's nice. It brings out the flavours. You have a wee sniff, and then you
like a good wine.
Yeah, like a good wine.
And Joel, as we do this, we want to toast you, our audience. Thank you so, so much. If you're tuning in every night or sporadically or listening on demand, we really genuinely appreciate it because it's been one hell of a year. And then Joel went to leave. Tried to leave.
Free flights cancelled on me. That was fun.
And then decided, hang on a minute, I like this country a little bit. I might stay. In the process, I hired 2 people to replace Joel because, as you can imagine, it does take 2 people to replace Joel. Joel said, oh, can I stay? So that brought us to 4 of us.
Mm-hmm.
And then the wonderful Tessa Prentice has joined us just recently.
Yeah.
What a blooming year it's been.
It's a busy one.
It has.
Yeah.
It has. So I want to raise a toast. Thank you so much to your whānau over Christmas from our whānau here at Sarah's Country. How do I say it again?
Scrymgeour.
Scrymgeour. Merry, Merry Christmas from us here at Sarah's Country. We will see you again in the new year. Have a wonderful, wonderful festive season. Thank you again so, so much. It's been an absolute privilege and pleasure. Scrymgeour.
Pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is Sarah's Country.